Becker City Council meeting of October 5th, 2021 to order. If you'll rise and join us for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, has council had an opportunity to review meeting minutes from September 21st? If so, I'll ask for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for September 21st.
One second.
Motion from Becky, second from Rick. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Sustain.
Oh, Michael will sustain since he was
Like
out.
what?
Abstain.
Wasn't here.
Any changes to this evening's agenda? Hearing none, I'll ask for approval of the set agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
Motion from Robin, second from Rick. Those in favor may state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Guests in open forum. Is anyone here for the guests in open forum portion? You look confused, like. It can be. Would you like it to be? All right, come on up to the podium, state your name and.
Hi, I'm Brady Hannan. I was here with the Planning Commission. Rick Hendrickson was there as well. He was, we were there, I was at the Planning Commission meeting, and I'm sorry, I'm really flustered right now.
That's okay. You were at the planning,
anyway.
Go ahead.
I applied for a variance for my fence, and I'm trying to keep it where it is, and the city backer, due to code, is asking me to move it back a little bit. But anyway, I was just asking to keep it where it is. My reasonings are that there's access to Highway 10, so we get a little more traffic, school traffic. When school gets let out, there's traffic flying down that road. We have the North Star coming by our neighborhood, or coming by our house. That fence is to try to keep the wandering eyes from looking to our backyard. And another reason why we want to keep the fence where it is because it promotes safer play in the backyard, because we have, where the fence is, it just gives our backyard a little more area. So we want to try and promote safe play for the children in the backyard as opposed to the front yard. So anyway, I'd just like you to take those thoughts into consideration when you get to my variance. So. Thank you.
Okay. And Rick, I heard you did a wonderful job at that planning meeting, explaining I did. Yes, so thank you. All right. Anyone else for guests in open forum? All right, we'll go ahead and move into committee reports. The end of September, we had the Excel Community Breakfast. It was via social media, Zoom, and they discussed about their future the future of their company in regards to the renewable energy. And I thought there was less attendees than there have been in the past, which was a little shocking to me.
Do you think that was due to that?
I didn't attend, which I normally do.
Yeah, I'm not sure why. It was just
gone.
something to note. But how about the Planning Commission?
Planning Commission, we had a more than full agenda, 12 items if you count adjourn. But so Mr. Hannan that was just here, we had his fence variance. We had a public hearing for that. We had a public hearing for, there was a Snuffy's Landing variance, that's on our agenda. We also had a public hearing on Chapter 11 zoning ordinance, that is there. We called for a public hearing on some additional Chapter 11 edits. And then we had just some discussion. A lot of times when we do these zoning, planning, things like that, we'll have discussion on it first, maybe a month, sometimes a few months until, pretty much the Planning Commission come to a census on it. And so we had some discussion on the fence ordinance. We didn't, it just got to a point where it was like, okay, we'd probably talked about it enough for the night. And so we had, we'll have more some more discussion next month, but we did have some discussion on that. We also, had presentation from, Julie and, Lieutenant Lindblom, excuse me, on items that we'll see tonight as well. Lots of items.
Lots of hot topic issues in there.
3 hours of nothing but planning commission funness.
All right. Joint planning, we had a CUP and a rezone for G&M Outdoor Services, which we know is on our agenda for later. They're moving from the city to the township for a larger space. And then how about budget and finance?
Budget and Finance met on September 22nd. We went over the financials. Golf looks great. Community Center is rebounding slowly. We talked about the past due utilities. They did shut-offs that day. 6 were shut off, 4 were paid in full, and 2 remained shut off. Past due amount has gone down quite a bit. AR invoices are current. American Recovery Plan, we're getting more information on where the dollars can be spent. And they have to complete a report in October, submit that. We will see more about that. We talked about the grant anticipation funding, looking at probably the middle of 2022 before we need that. So we'll get more information as we go. And we got the 2022 proposed tax capacity values, and Mark will be presenting info on that at our next meeting. And that is about it.
All right, any other committees that met? All right, we will move along to Chapter 6, Code Updates with Miss Bleasy.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So staff has been working on updates to Chapter 6 of City Code, and there's quite a few here, so I'll try and make it quick. It is all of Chapter 6. So sections 6.0 through 6.01 through 6.12, there were a lot of capitalization type corrections. In there, it also references the fee schedule by resolution that has now been changed to ordinance. 6.02 subdivision 5 talks about applications, council approving them by resolution. In subdivision 1 of that section, it talks about being furnished by the city for such purposes, so that's been changed to match subdivision 1. 6.03 subdivision 2, the proration of licenses has been removed as it's been identified in each section for the licenses. Subdivision 3 of section 6.03, just adding an unless otherwise specified herein as it relates to the transfer of licenses. So some of the licenses can and cannot be transferred, so they're directing it to that specific section of code then. And then 6.05, adding peddlers, transient merchants to being required to carry their registration, as well as removing the references to licensing by sticker, as we don't do that at this time. The 6.19 cable franchise, there were just some minor edits, correction of duplications, and some deletion of extra words that shouldn't have been in there. We are keeping it in there as cable franchises. Most recent ones have been done by separate ordinance, but in case there's some that were covered prior to those separate ordinances being completed, legal recommended keeping it in our ordinance. Section 6.20 tobacco, we didn't recommend any changes. That was updated in 2020. Section 6.21, this was completely rewritten off of the league's model policy, and it now more closely follows our actual procedure for gambling in regards to premise permits and exempt permits. Section 6.22, there were no updates recommended to that section. It was completed in 2017 and has been working well for us. 6.23 kennels, we are recommending removing this section. Kennels are actually licensed by the state, and within the city limits are only allowed by CUP. So as part of the CUP process through Planning Commission, they would recommend putting in, requiring proof of those state-issued kennel licenses. And talking with our planners, they were they recommended that process for that. Arborists, we're recommending removing this section as well. Just feel it's the responsibility of the homeowner to make sure they're hiring the correct person for this work. Looking at surrounding communities too, none of the surrounding communities licensed arborists. Adult entertainment establishments, this code was revised. The main change is moving from requiring all employees to be licensed and backgrounded at time of hire to requiring it just a one-time, once-a-year licensing and renewal for the owners and managers of the establishments. It was sent off to legal to review. They had no concerns with it, and Chief Balloon also reviewed it and had no concerns. Mobile food units, we're making one recommendation for change, and that would be an exclusion for licensing for businesses hiring a food truck in conjunction with customer appreciation events for up to twice a year. And then the final one would be the massage establishments. This is also a new code for the city at the recommendation of our city attorney. So he has completely reviewed the code provided. So those are the changes for Chapter 6. I can take any questions. Otherwise, the motions to approve the ordinance and the summary ordinance. It's a lot.
Yeah, section 6 is a lot. But I know we discussed a lot of this at exec session last time, so. Are there any other questions for Julie? Otherwise, I'll ask council how you wish to proceed.
Make a motion to approve ordinance 242, second series, amending sections 601 through 612, 619, 621, 625, 626, removing sections 623 and 24, and adding section 627 in chapter 6, other business regulation and licensing in city code.
I will second.
Motion from Rick, second from Robin. Any other discussion? With none, those in favor may state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
And I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 242, second series, summary, keyword, for publication purposes.
Second.
Motion from Rick, second from Robin. Any discussion? With none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, we'll go into the public hearing. Public hearing for consideration of the fee schedule with Ms. Bleasy, and I will go ahead and open the public hearing at 5:13 p.m.
All right, so with the updates that we just completed for Chapter 6, we need to make some changes to the fee schedule. So we're proposing the addition of adult entertainment and massage establishment fees, and then the removal of the kennel fee. Additionally, there was one minor reference under administrative citations for parking in yards, which we're taking advantage to get corrected with this public hearing tonight. So I can take any questions, otherwise we can open it up.
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
Oh, it is.
Or is it
It
just
is
called?
open. It was open at 5:13.
Not bad.
Okay. Is anybody here to discuss the fee schedule? Seeing no one approach, I will ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion from Rick, second from Mike to close the public hearing. Those in favor can state aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. We are closed at 5:14 p.m.
And I would ask council for motions to approve the ordinance updates.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 243, second series, revising section 219 of chapter 2 in city code relating to licensing and administrative citations.
I'll second.
Motion from Rick, second from Mike. Those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 243, second, for summary for publication purposes.
Second.
Motion from Rick, second from Mike. Those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. Board Committee and Consultant Reports. Chapter 9 Code Update with Lieutenant Lindblom.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Excited for my first opportunity to speak in front of you. I had the pleasure of reviewing Chapter 9 of the city ordinance for the ongoing city code update. Mine is relatively minor compared to Julie's. Couple of the highlights, small formatting change in section 9.03 subdivision 4, which was just a edit onto a time format issue. Section 9.10 subdivision 3 is a removal completely. This subsection had basically stated that people were not allowed to remove markings that law enforcement placed on their vehicles while checking on parked vehicles. That's no longer done. We don't mark vehicles on the actual tire anymore, so that statute or that subsection wasn't necessary anymore. We just simply mark on the roadway now, so there's nothing to remove from a vehicle. The third change would be in section 9.21, just a small portion of that regarding parking in city parking lots specifically. Had stated to, in the previous ordinance stated to park or leave standing any vehicle backed into a parking place. After further review of that, we weren't really able to determine why that was in there or what prompted that. Just felt that it wasn't necessary to be in the ordinance, preventing people from doing that, so. Planning Commission, on the 27th of September, I spoke with them and they, listened and approved the changes. And, now we're at the point of me asking for a motion and second to approve ordinance 244 second series, amending the sections 9.03, 9.10, 9.21 in chapter 9. Any questions?
Well, I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 244 second series, amending sections 903, 910, and 921 in chapter 9 parking regulations of city code.
I'll second.
Motion from Rick, second from Mike. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor may state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 244 second series, summary for publication purposes.
I'll second.
Motion from Rick, second from Mike. Any discussion on the summary? With none, those in favor can state aye. Aye. Opposed, carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chapter 11 Code Updates. Mr. Sanders.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Almost shut that. So staff, this recently went through Planning Commission. Staff is proposing some edits to provide some clarity and understanding to some of the recently adopted driveway language that was done, about a year and a half ago, or a year ago. And we're proposing adding crushed stone as a definition. This will help clear up any confusion that might be out there relating to some of the materials allowed for secondary driveways. So a secondary driveway is anything additional to that primary leading to the garage. And as part of this, in talking with the city engineer, it would prohibit pit run or sand and clay binders, which is one of the things that pit run is just they go into the side of something, dig it out, it's got some aggregate in it, and then they put it down. So kind of your dirt road that you would see out commonly in many of the areas. We're also proposing combining the design standards into just one piece, so it would remove a lot of the other language. So again, providing clarity. And we are also, as part of this set, proposing removing just some language in there that relating to accessory structures that shouldn't have been in there in the first place. So it was saying that they had to be, you couldn't have a pole shed on anything that was less than half an acre, which is not the case. And also some of the language that we're proposing is the requirement for CUP for wireless telecommunication towers only if they're doing big new tower or an accessory structure, something that's fairly large. And the reason for this is we put in their language that actually allow them to upgrade arrays or equipment without receiving a CUP amendment, so it'll speed up some of the processes for a lot of these telecommunication providers, so wireless. So if there are no questions regarding the changes shown in the packet, staff is seeking for a motion and a second approving the ordinance 245 second series and a motion and a second approving ordinance 245 second series summary for publication.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 245 second series.
I'll second.
Motion from Robin, second from Mike. Any discussion? I feel like this chapter will never go away. I mean, we've been working on it for almost 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's one that gets updated regularly.
It does. Yes, we
It
keep
does,
this.
it does,
That's
yeah.
one way to look at it. We keep it current.
We have another public hearing on planning commission for it.
All right. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 245 second series summary for publication purposes.
I'll second that.
Motion from Robin, second from Mike. Those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Jacob, we look forward to talking about this one again in a month.
Yes, more to come.
All right, next on the list is Brady Hannan fence height variance.
Thank you again, Mayor, Council. Mr. Hannan, who spoke earlier, had submitted an application for a variance. This was also at our last planning commission meeting where a public hearing was held, and Mr. Hannan spoke at that. We didn't receive any other comment from the community outside of Mr. Hannan's. The variance request was to keep a 6 foot tall, and I say keep because the fence was already constructed. There was a permit pulled, but during the process of review, the fence was constructed prior to receiving an approved permit. So it was constructed in the front yard of the property, and code actually prohibits fences from being taller than 4 feet in the front yard. Corner lots have 2 front yards, and in this case, it extends, I think, 8 feet into the front yard. And so the request did not meet the findings that were established by Planning Commission and staff that are stated in the resolution in the packet. And unless there are any questions, we're seeking for a motion and a second approving Resolution 2178, denying the variance request for increase in maximum fence height.
Jacob, I spoke with you earlier today because I got a little confused with the ask and trying to have the issue meet what, the regulations of allowing a variance are. And I think there was a phrase that you had said that kind of like brought it all to light. It was like the fence height is allowed, just not in
Correct.
the setback space that it is in.
Correct.
And it's very tricky. I think we have a lot of houses in Becker that have a couple quirks to the setback issue, and I wish we'd be able to get in front of those homeowners, before they do things, just to make sure that they don't have to go through this kind of a situation. It's tiresome for them, and
Sure. Yeah, no, and I think that's right. It's not that, Mr. Hannan can't have a 6 foot tall fence. It just has to do with where. So he is allowed to have one. It just can't be 6 feet tall in the front yard. And one of the things too, as staff, that we really tried to do is, as people come in, we really encourage people to come in and talk to us so they can explain things to them and try to really help them understand what the code means, what it says. And because if you don't read it all the time or you're not involved with it, it can be very hard to understand. So as staff, we'd really encourage everybody that would like to come in and talk to us to try and get a better understanding of that. And you're right, there are all sorts of situations that we run into, and that's one of the reasons that zoning code gets revised so much too, is after a while of something being in place, if you see a lot of something, then you need to come back and revisit it.
Just for everybody else's benefit, can we talk about can you just read what so there's the 3 criteria, so whatever we set for, as a city, we adopt our code, and then if you're gonna do something where you would get a variance, which would be a legal, pass, if you wanna say, it has to meet 3 set of criteria.
Yeah.
And so can you just very briefly
Yeah.
Just what
You
those
bet. Those are mentioned in 2178 in the resolution, right underneath that first A bullet point after the now letter, therefore be it resolved. And statute requires that you meet 3 factors to prove a practical difficulty. And those are that 1, it must be reasonable, 2, it must be unique, and 3, that it doesn't change the essential character of the area. So in this case, it didn't meet that 3-factor test. Many times we find people can meet some of them, but not one of them. In this case, the request to keep the 6-foot fence high under reasonableness really had to do with, there are alternatives that were provided. Again, he can put a 6-foot fence up, it just can't be where he wants it. The uniqueness has to relate to a topographic, natural feature of the property that wasn't caused by a landowner. So, and that means not just the current, but previous landowner, so it's the whole time of that property. And because this property, there's really nothing causing Mr. Hannan to have to put a 6-foot fence in the spot that he wants it to, that's a physical feature of the property that's naturally occurring. So because of that, that'd be like something like a bluff. We'll actually, later on, we'll show you another variance that shows that, but it has to be something natural. And this one, in this case, is not. There's nothing causing that to have to go there. And then the essential character, there are no other fences really in this area that, especially in this surrounding area, that are 6 feet tall in the front yard. And it would change the character of the neighborhood since it would begin to establish the appearance, the character of an alleyway. So if you were to imagine fences going up at 6 feet on all sides of the property down those roads, you'd begin to create an alleyway. So the uniqueness one, though, is probably the biggest one that it can't meet. Is that what you'd like?
Yes, thank you. Something that always puzzles me is on the Edgewood, there's a wooden privacy fence that I know is at least 6 feet tall. And I believe it's the backyard, but it's on a road, would you explain that one to me?
Yeah, so that's one of the things that actually was discussed at the last discussion. So that went on for some time. So that's one of the things that is being discussed right now in Planning Commission, that will come back again. Because there are 2 things, there's corner lots, there's through lots. Through lots typically they abut a lower road to a higher road, such as Edgewood. So that's one of the things that's being discussed right now.
Isn't that home on a cul-de-sac though?
On the front side, yes. It abuts Edgewood on the other side. On the front side, it is against that. So that is being discussed. Because right now there is just the blanket statement of 6 feet. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I just wanted to know if that,
Yeah, the through lot, currently it does apply, yes, because it is a through lot.
and I assume the planning commission recommended to not grant the variance, right?
Yes, if we stick with the uniqueness piece of it, there was a couple points that were offered, that we did discuss. One being, that, where Mr. Hand's property is, it's located at, stand closer to the mic. It's, on a 4 or 5 street intersection, which is unique. There's probably no other properties like that in town. But we felt that did not have a bearing on where the fence was positioned. I mean, whether it was on a street where 2 streets meet, or 3 or 4 or 5, really didn't affect the sighting of the fence. There was also discussion about the traffic, but there's other, every other house on that street, and every other house has traffic too. And so it was, as far as it being unique, and those are items like that where you would be unique. Again, we're talking about man-made, unique type of things there. It's not a, typically this would be like a pond or something that would be, there since creation, you'd say. So, so we didn't feel that any of the any of the items presented met the uniqueness. And so, sticking with that alone, that was why we chose, to recommend pass the ordinance, which would deny the variance.
Now, is this one of the things that we're gonna be discussing with when we start talking about these ordinances?
Yeah, so this is one that was discussed at the last time. Like I say, I don't know how long we went on for, what, an hour, probably.
Pretty close.
And at that time, we were still discussing, and so it'll come back up again for more discussion at the next planning commission meeting. Because there are a lot of pieces to it, moving parts and pieces and factors in it, so I think that was why the discussion went on so long and why it needed to continue.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2178.
Second.
Motion from Mike, second from Rick. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Yeah.
We are gonna move right into Snuffy's Landing Pavilion variance to like
Yes.
wrap your planning session all up.
So, thank you, Mayor, Council. We received a request for variance from the Public Works Department of the city for a pavilion. The pavilion would be need to be constructed within setbacks. So this property is actually regulated by two things on a setback. First, the city code shoreland management overlay, which requires a 150-foot setback from the ordinary high water line, which is, in this case, the bank. And by statute, it actually is required to be 175 from shoreland and 150 from statute. It's got a wild and scenic overlay that's on it. Due to the topography and the proximity of the river to the bluff line, it's like 25% slopes. You can't put a structure down there anywhere without receiving a variance. Because the topographic features of the property are such that it just wouldn't allow it. You can, 175 foot would put it way back up on the bluff, and there's a road up there and you have to be set back from that road, so you can't put it there. So this is actually a prime example of where it does meet all of the findings, especially statutory findings. It's reasonable to want to put it there to allow people to come and speak to the river. It's an allowed use within the zoning district and by statutory regulations. The DNR also, we had to reach out to them, that's part of it. They did not have any comments on the variance. That's important because the DNR is the one that's over the wild and scenic overlays that are in statute. So they were okay with the variance as well. Because of that, and the fact that it meets the three-factor test and the other findings that are established within the zoning ordinance, staff is looking for a motion in a second. And Planning Commission, by the way, did review this and approve it. And staff is seeking for a motion and second to approve resolution 2179, approving the variance to the city of Becker shoreland setbacks to allow for a pavilion to be built. Any questions?
And this is a pavilion that the Lions are wanting to like do. Okay.
Yeah, and there are, one thing I will point out, there are some conditions on this variance that will regulate that are listed at the very end. And these just have to do with some of the statutory requirements. It has to be 3 feet above the ordinary high water level, which I think it's gonna be like, what did you say, 4 or 6, yeah. So it's well above where it's required to be per statute, but that is a condition. They have to obtain a building permit and a survey, which they're working on, and any other like ramps or stuff that they do later on has to meet statute and zoning code. Expansions would have to also receive a variance, any sewage treatment, and then also number 5, the pavilion must be maintained to make sure that the character of the area is protected.
Make a motion to approve resolution 2179.
I'll second that.
Motion from Rick, second from Mike. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jacob. That was
you,
a
Mayor.
lot.
Thank you, Mayor Council.
Keep up the good work. Administrator and staff report. Adoption of the Emergency Operations Plan. Chief Balloon.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. As we do every 5 years, we undergo review and an assessment of our emergency operations plan. So part of my duty is also as the emergency management director for the city, kind of to look at these things, to see what our response is to major events or disasters that would occur within our jurisdiction here. As some of you may recall, when we updated this back in 2016, we underwent a fair amount of changes to the plan, just kind of bringing it up to date, the look of it, that sort of thing. At that time, there were a lot of changes being made. A lot of places had kind of switched over to a different format, that sort of thing. We did the same thing. Moving forward now is what, so I've spoken to some colleagues in Stearns County and Sherburne County alike. Not many changes. They don't make changes like we probably do here. I like to review this every 5 years. Seems like a long time. But in the world of this, I'm finding it's not. I've seen a lot of plans that I think they only change them if something happens. But I still believe that every 5 years, while it's a long time, is still a suitable time frame to be at least reviewing and assessing to make sure we're able to respond to events as they might occur. So that in mind, what has occurred here is very few changes have actually been made to the current emergency operations plan. Just a couple of cosmetic things really in the actual plan itself, because I think we've got a very robust plan that allows us proper response to events, that sort of thing. However, there has been one thing that has been added to this plan overall, and that's what we call a continuity of operations plan, a COOP plan. And what that does is it allows kind of more from a city employee perspective, the ability to respond just as an organization to the needs of the community should a disaster occur. Now, when you look at that, you'll notice there's things that are identified as one part of this would identify immediate things that need to be done versus necessary, important, and delayed. And what those refer to is like immediate might be within 12 hours. What does the city need to do within 12 hours? Because as we know, government continues to go on. It doesn't stop because there's a disaster. So it might be emergency response. It could be water treatment operations need to get back up and running as fast as possible. Obviously, fire and law enforcement might be part of that. Snow removal, if that's something, or roadway clearance. But then you move into the necessary part, which would be 12 hours to 5 days in length that we need to get back up and running as soon as possible, which could be payment to vendors, payroll, compensation things, city council meetings to direct and identify the things that we need. So that's the kinds of things that we would identify in a continuity of operations plan for the city. We don't have one. This is now being offered as part of our emergency operations plan. So I think that's good for us. Like I say, every 5 years we kind of do an update to this, or again, an assessment just to make sure we are where we need to be. And again, this only identifies for the most part if we have a major event here, this is going to kick in to help guide us what we need to do, where do people need to be from an employee perspective, like who's going to speak on behalf of the city. It's probably going to be us three in some way. Where do resources get deployed? So it's important to have. We need to have one, obviously, but again, we're set. The next real look at this wouldn't happen until 2026 unless we felt there was a need to really kind of look at it again. So with that in mind, if there's any questions, otherwise what we look for is an adoption of the plan, a motion and a second to adopt it, and its contents, which would include the continuity of operations plan. Exciting stuff, I know.
I'll make a motion to approve the adoption of the 2021 Emergency Operations Plan and contents.
Second.
Motion from Becky, second from Robin. Any discussion? With none, those in favor can state aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Audit report on body cameras. Chief Balloon.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As, again, another thing that we have to kind of do, as you recall, in 2017, we undertook or accepted the use of body cameras in the city of Becker for our police department. So statutorily, we are now required every 2 years to undergo an audit to ensure that we are following practice, statutory requirements, policy, that sort of thing. Back in 2019, we had the Minnesota State Auditor come in and actually do our audit for us to ensure probably the best review possible to ensure that we're capturing what we're supposed to be capturing, the process is being, done or, followed the way it's supposed to be followed. And at that time, a few minor recommendations were made by the auditor. Those were completed before they pretty much left town, but it was pretty simple. We completed it with the flying colors. Now, moving forward to this year, back in July, we decided this time around we would hire a consultant, one that's well-known in our field. She works actually for the Burnsville Police Department as one of their people that oversees their body camera process. And as you may or may not know, Burnsville is one of the first agencies in the country to utilize body cameras. So she's well-known and very, very well-versed in the use of body cameras. So we thought this would be a good direction to try this time. Certainly much cheaper, but certainly no less very complete in what she does and looks through the process. In front of you is a copy of the audit report that she offered to us. As you'll note, through the whole entire report, no discrepancies were noted in any of the processes that she reviewed. So I'm happy to report at this time that we're following, the rules and the guidelines that we're supposed to be following. My staff is, I should say, they are following the rules and the guidelines when they're out in the field, recording events and that sort of thing. And, it's the recording, it's the tagging of the videos, with the case numbers that we utilize, who has access to them, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of things that kind of go into that were analyzed and looked at just to ensure compliance with the state statute. So with that in mind, what I need before this can be sent off to legislative committees is an actual acceptance of the report from the city council.
I will make a motion to accept the findings from the body camera contractor, Lynn Lemke Consulting, as identified in her report.
I'll second.
Motion from Robin, second from Becky. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. G&M Outdoor Holdings Purchase Agreement with Ms. Flipson.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So as mentioned earlier tonight, G&M Outdoors currently holds property in our business park. They are actually looking to purchase a property in the township. The building is already constructed, it fits their needs, and they have a little additional space out there as well. So this was a property, or the property that they're at now in the business park was one that the city actually originally owned. So we are looking to go through the buyback of that property so we can retain it again then for a future business attraction or expansion project in that area. So tonight before you, there is a purchase agreement and then there's a resolution. And I do apologize, I do have one edit that I caught this afternoon. We identify the purchase agreement, but we would also like to, with our other closing agreements or purchase agreements, we include language for the closing itself. So under the now therefore be it resolved, we would just also add in the authorization and for all necessary documents to complete the purchase of the property. So this allows us to actually do the closing with the purchase agreement being done. So it's very clear then that the closing is authorized as long as the purchase agreement is as well. So it's a minor edit. That would be pretty standard when we did the Potter one. That is the standard language that we include, but I didn't catch it was in this resolution. So that's one small edit. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, a motion and second for resolution 2180 with edits would be appreciated.
Make a motion to approve resolution 2180 with edits.
Second?
Motion from Rick, second from Robin. Any discussion? With none, those in favor can state aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. All right. Consent to termination of declaration of railroad easement. Ms. Flipson.
Thank you. So a while back when TJ Potter had originally purchased one of the expansion properties, there was a reestablished railroad easement on that property. Now with the pending closing of the additional 2 properties from the city to Potter, The request is made for that railroad easement to be vacated so that building can then go across what would be the current property line. So we have been working with legal on this. The resolution that tonight before you, 2181, gives our consent to extinguish that railroad easement. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, 2180 approval would be recommended and appreciated.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2181 for the termination of the declaration of railroad easement.
I'll second.
Motion from Robin, second from Becky. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Safety grant application with Ms. Bleasy.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. So tonight, Safety Committee has been discussing possibilities for a safety grant. And during the discussion, we identified the need for some lights for safety along roadways and dark places, just to provide additional safety for our workers. The Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry does have a grant program, and there's submissions, I believe it's almost every 2 months with them, where you can submit applications for grants. It would be matching funds. We are looking at the Guardian Angel lights, and we're looking at a total of 40 lights divided between all of our departments. The total cost for the project would be right close to $3,600. So we're requesting authorization to submit that grant to see if we can get it approved for the Guardian lights for our departments. Matching funds would come from our safety fund for it if we are approved. So tonight I'd ask for authorization to submit for it. I'll take any questions if you may have them.
Make a motion to approve the submission of the safety grant program application.
I'll second.
Motion from Rick, second from Mike. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor may state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Consent agenda with Mr. Przinski.
Madam Mayor, City Council, consent agenda is revised for August 5th, 2021. Item number 1 is a hiring and termination report form for the Becker Community Center and Pebble Creek Golf Course. Item number 2 is policy, electronic and paper pull tab policy and procedure. Item number 3 is special inspection and material testing services agreement. This is with Chosen Valley Testing. It actually covers the Pebble Creek Simulator project, the bulk of it dirt work, oversight, and then testing of concrete. Item number 4 is a change order number 2 for the 2020 well number 7 transmission water main. I think I sent that out earlier to the City Council, changing gate valves, reducing from a 14-inch to a 12-inch. That's a reduction in the contract of about $12,000, a little bit over $12,000. Item number 5 is a partial pay request, and that's for Northdale Construction, and that's for the 2020 well transmission water main. This pay request in the amount of $480. Excuse me. This partial pay request, $480,194.75, leaving a contract construction amount of $448,753.21. Item number 6 is a partial pay request, and this is pay request number 2, American Liberty Construction. That's the well field contract that's been going on here for the last few months. This is a partial pay request in the amount of $120,491.48, leaving a contract for the construction of $1,094,933.68. Item number 7 is a partial pay request for Trout Companies, and that's the municipal well field. This partial pay request is $16,226, leaving a contract construction amount of $35,167.75. Item number 8 is approval for Braun Intertech. And that is for Phase 2 in the business park, soil borings for lift station, water mains, et cetera. That contract amount would be $11,720. And item number 9 is a donation acceptance, and that's a resolution 21-82, and that is a donation from Liberty Paper to our Becker Police Department. If you have any questions, I will try to address those and answer those. Otherwise, a motion to approve the consent agenda for October 5th would be appreciated.
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda?
I'll second.
Motion from Mike, second from Becky. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Payment of the bills.
Make a motion to pay the bills.
Motion from Robin, second from Rick. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor may state aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Does council have anything else for the betterment of Becker? If not, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
And want we adjourn? Second.
Motion from Mike, second from Rick. Those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 5:51 PM.